Okay, so welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. Today we're going to get into something I think a lot of us think about a lot, you know,
Yeah.
um, and that's success, or I guess redefining success. What does it even mean?
Right.
We've got a ton of articles and books and research, all sorts of stuff that we've been looking at.
Yeah.
And I'm really curious, where this deep dive will take us. What actually does make a life successful?
Yeah.
And how do we sort of break out of these molds that everyone seems to push on us?
Well, and that's what I find so fascinating about a lot of what we've been looking at for this. So many of the sources are saying the same thing. The
Yeah.
traditional markers of success, like
Yeah.
the big corner office, the huge paycheck.
Right, right.
They don't actually line up with whether or not someone is genuinely happy or,
Yeah.
fulfilled by their life. Like, actually, there's this study in here. I think you'd find this really interesting.
Oh, wait, hold on. Tell me about the study. I'm always kind of skeptical about those sayings like money can't buy happiness,
Sure.
because it's easy to say that when you're comfortable.
I mean, yeah, that's a good point. But this study, what they did was they followed this group of people, high achievers,
Okay.
over decades. So these were people who, at least on the outside, you look at them and be like, wow, they are successful. But you know what they found? The people in that group who were really focused on external validation
Mm-hmm.
more than things like, personal growth and relationships, meaning purpose, all that stuff.
Yeah.
They actually, over time, reported lower levels of satisfaction with their lives.
So you're saying even if you're hitting all of those like milestones, those traditional milestones,
Right.
it might not even be what you actually care about.
Exactly.
It's almost like you climb to the top of the ladder,
Yeah.
only to realize that it's leaning against the wrong wall.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's where this whole idea of redefining success comes in. It's about figuring out, like, what really motivates you? What makes you happy?
Right, right.
What kind of impact do you want to have on the world? Like, those are the questions.
Okay, so how do we even begin to figure that out? It's so easy to just say, like, follow your passion,
Right?
but like, what if you don't even know what your passion is? You know what I mean?
Well, there's this one source that had this really interesting exercise. They said, think back to a time when you felt truly alive, like you were totally engaged in what you were doing,
Hmm.
and ask yourself, what was it about that experience that really resonated with you?
Oh, that's a good one. It's making me think now. I remember when I was a kid, I used to spend hours and hours building these massive Lego cities, and I would just get so lost in them.
Yeah.
It wasn't really about the finished city. It was just like the joy of building it and figuring out how it all worked together. Just, letting my imagination run wild. Maybe there's a clue in there somewhere for me.
Oh, for sure. I think it's in those little moments that we often find our passions and those values,
Mm-hmm.
Another thing I think is helpful is thinking about your values.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you had to choose 3 words
Uh-huh.
to guide your life, what would they be?
Oh, that is tough. I don't know, maybe creativity and
Uh-huh.
connection.
Yeah.
Oh, and growth. Yeah. Those are good.
See, and those values, those can become like the foundation of your own personal definition of success. It's
Oh.
not just about what you achieve, but how you do it, who you become in the process.
Right.
And actually, one of the articles, this one was really interesting, was arguing that embracing failure is actually like essential for growth.
Whoa, hold on. Failure as like a part of success. I've never really thought of it that way.
It's a different way to think about it, right?
Yeah.
Because it's through those setbacks that we learn and we adapt.
Mm-hmm.
And we get stronger. It's about seeing those challenges not as these roadblocks that are in your way,
Yeah.
but as opportunities to grow.
So it's not about just avoiding failure altogether, but it's more about how you react to it.
Right.
It becomes like a stepping stone,
Yeah.
not a stumbling block.
Exactly.
I like that.
Yeah.
But how do we actually start to like live this out? How do we put this redefined success into action? It all sounds great.
Yeah.
But it also just sounds really overwhelming.
It can be, but one thing I think is helpful is setting small, achievable goals
Okay.
that match up with those values we were talking about,
Mhm.
So instead of focusing on this big, huge, end goal,
Right.
break it down to those smaller steps that you can do today,
Yeah.
this week, this month,
So instead of saying, I want to change the world,
Right.
it's more like, what can I do today to like live out those values that I've identified?
Exactly.
It's progress over perfection.
Yes. And keep in mind, this is a journey It's not about reaching a destination. It's ongoing. You're going to keep refining your definition of success as you grow and learn.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think we can kind of wrap things up by saying that success, it's not one size fits all, it's personal. And it's about making sure your actions are lining up with what you value.
Hmm.
And it's just this constant process of growing and discovering yourself. I like that.
And, here's something I was thinking about as we were talking about all this. What if we just stopped measuring success by all those external markers
Yeah.
and instead focused on the impact that we have on ourselves, on our relationships, on the world? What do you think your life would look like then?
Hmm. Yeah. Something to think about for sure. Thanks for joining me today.
Of course, it's been great.
And we'll see you next time for another deep dive.